Will the House please come to order and members kindly take their seats? Good afternoon. The devotional today will be led by Representative Emily Kornheiser of Brattleboro.
Hello. This time of year, as things speed up and slow down, this poem always comes to mind. And so in honor of a family member's birthday, I would like to read it to all of you. Report of the 14th Subcommittee on Convening a Discussion Group by Marge Piercy. This is how things begin to tilt into change. How coalitions are knit from strands of hair, of barbed wire, twine, knitting wool, and gut. How people ease into action, arguing each inch, but the tedium of it is watching granite erode. Let us meet to debate meeting, the day, the time, the length. Let us discuss whether we will sit or stand or hang from the ceiling or take it lying down. Let us argue about the chair and the table and the chairperson and the motion to table the chair. In the room, the fog gathers under the ceiling and thickens in every brain. Let us form committees, spawning subcommittees, all laying little moldy eggs of reports. Under the gray fluorescent sun, they will crack to hatch scuttling lizards of more committees. We are evolving into mollusks, barnacles, clinging to wood and plastic, metal and smoke, while the stale and flotsam-laden tides of rhetoric inches up the shingles and dawdles back. This is true virtue, to sit here and stay awake, to listen, to argue, to wade on through the muck, wrestling to some momentary small agreement. Like a pinhead pearl prized from a dragon oyster. I believe in this democracy, as I believe there is blood in my veins, but oh, in me lurks a tyrant with a double-bladed axe who longs to swing it wide and shining, who longs to stand and shriek, "You shall do as I say, pig bastards." No more committees, but only picnics and orgies and dances. I have spoken, so be it forevermore.
Members, we have a bill on the notice calendar requiring referral to a money committee pursuant to House Rule 35A. Senate Bill 126 is an act relating to healthcare payment and delivery system reform. Carrying an appropriation, the bill is referred to the Committee on Appropriations. Earlier today, the Committee on Ways and Means reported favorably on Senate Bill 109, which is an act relating to miscellaneous judiciary procedures. Carrying an appropriation, the bill is referred to the Committee on Appropriations, pending its entry on the notice calendar. Members, we have received requests to read two House concurrent resolutions that the House and Senate adopted pursuant to the consent calendar. The first is HCR 107, which is a House concurrent resolution congratulating the Rice Memorial High School Green Knight boys ice hockey team on winning a second consecutive Division I championship. Please listen to the reading of the resolution.
As endless superlatives are the only way to describe the Green Knights' 2024-2025 season on the ice, as they surpassed their 2023-2024 Division I season in innumerable ways. And whereas Rice was an offensive powerhouse this season, overwhelming their opponents on the scoreboard 136-17, and they remained undefeated, sporting an overall record of 23-0. And whereas retaining that perfect win-loss record was briefly in doubt during the Division I championship game at the University of Vermont Scudderson Fieldhouse, where the top-seeded Green Knights faced off against the number 3 South Burlington Wolves. And whereas the Wolves scored first at 2:35 into the first period, but Rice returned the favor merely 31 seconds later, and despite the Wolves tying the score at 2-2 early in the third period, Rice focused intensely, securing a 4-2 victory and the 2025 Division I crown. And whereas Green Knights Griffin Seats, Wesley Casavant, Oliver Kong, Brendan Patterson, Ryder Donati, Joe Alexander, Walter Morris, Jack Lemon, Tyler Russo, Chase Lyford, John Fernandez, Vincent Lanzetta, Peyton Albertson, Pierre Heroux, Tucker Martin, Evan Welcome, Luke Sensak, Jack Webb, Baylor Lemos, Gunnar Mink, Mason Bilodeau, Tyler Ritchie, Carlo Pizzagalli, Garrett Pylon, Connor Williams, Henry Monahan, and John Novak commanded the ice with confidence. And whereas head coach Justin Martin, assistant coaches Jerry Tarrant, Aaron Miller, Brady Leisenring, and Shay Spanier, as well as team managers Jordan Hutchins, Owen Cook, and Patrick Raleigh, were delighted with the team's success. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the General Assembly congratulates the Rice Memorial High School Green Knights boys ice hockey team on winning a second consecutive Division I championship. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this resolution to Rice Memorial High School.
Next is HCR 112, which is a House concurrent resolution congratulating Capital City Concerts and Karen Kevra for a quarter century of delightful and informative classical music performances and related cultural endeavors in Central Vermont. Please listen to the reading of the resolution.
Whereas in 2000, the Grammy Award-winning nominee and talented classical flutist Karen Kevra established the Capital City Concerts classical music series. And whereas through the presentation of world-renowned classical musicians and community-accessible live chamber ensemble performances, Capital City Concerts continues the legacy of Karen Kevra's mentor, the late Louis Moyes of Marlborough Music Festival fame. And whereas under her leadership, Capital City Concerts has evolved into an admired Central Vermont cultural institution that has presented more than 200 concerts, outreach programs, and master classes. And whereas during the COVID-19 pandemic, Capital City's Concerts produced the Muse Mentors podcast, in which Karen Kevra interviewed Vermont artists and performers, resulting in inspiring episodes that wove together conversation, music, and sound effects. And whereas Capital City Concerts programming enhances the Vermont economy, attracting participating musicians and attendees who patronize local businesses. And whereas over 200 musicians from Canada, Europe, and most significantly throughout the United States have enjoyed playing as compensated performers under the Capital City Concerts banner. And this local artistic organization's mentorship has helped cultivate the careers of young professional classical musicians. And whereas in response to Central Vermont's devastating July 2023 floods, Capital City Concerts staged a benefit concert raising $10,000 for flood relief support. And whereas Capital City Concerts has staged memorable performances and organized worthy community programs, both small and large, and it has garnered laudatory media coverage while elevating the area's cultural reputation. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the General Assembly congratulates Capital City Concerts and Karen Kevra for a quarter century of delightful and informative classical music performances and related cultural endeavors in Central Vermont. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this resolution to Capital City Concerts and Karen Kevra.
Are there any announcements? Member from Montpelier.
Madam Speaker, we just heard a resolution honoring a Montpelier treasure, Karen Kevra. Karen's a Grammy-nominated flautist and founder of Capital City Concerts, a beloved Vermont cultural institution that has presented world-class classical performances and community programs for 25 years. Through her leadership, the organization has supported emerging musicians. It's elevated the region's artistic profile. And very close to my heart, Karen spearheaded raising thousands of dollars for flood relief. After 25 years, she is truly in the fabric of our city. She's with us today, and I'd ask the body to give her a warm welcome.
Will the guest and the member from Montpelier please rise and be recognized? Member from South Burlington.
Madam Speaker, I rise to celebrate the birthday of my homegirl from South Burlington. I would say that I'm here to tell you that it is her birthday, but everybody in this house already seems to know. I suspect she told you all herself. She is the junior member, not in terms of tenure, which is seat 11, but rather in terms of stature, and was in terms of age, although I think today is a big round number if I'm not mistaken. She is a dear friend and incorrigible carpool gossip. Loves puppies and seniors, hates mornings. No matter when I arrive to pick her up, she's always running 5 minutes late, LOL. Fortunately, I always am too, so it doesn't really matter. At any rate, I would like everyone to help me celebrate the birthday of the work wife, the junior member from South Burlington, Chair 58.
Happy birthday, member. Member from Waterbury.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm sure that we've all been to a healthcare provider and we've had an ache or a pain or a shoulder or a knee or a back or I don't know, I guess the aches go on and on. And often one of the key things that our healthcare provider will ask us to do and ask us if we're willing to do is to see a physical therapist and to really try to resolve that through the incredible work that our physical therapists around the state do. So today in the card room and here in the body, we are joined by the American Physical Therapy Association of Vermont, who represent 400 physical therapists, physical therapy assistants, and students. And as we all know, they work to help Vermonters avoid surgeries, prevent falls, and one of the key things that they help is to help relieve pain without the use of opioids and to enable people to return to work. So please join me in welcoming them. They're seated in the gallery. Thank you.
Will the guest member from Waterbury please rise and be recognized? Member from South Burlington.
Madam Speaker, it is my honor to introduce the members of the Rice Memorial High School Green Knights boys ice hockey team. Today, we are joined by a group of talented athletes, dedicated coaches who have just completed an incredible season, achieving an undefeated record and securing their second Division I championship. Their hard work, teamwork, and determination have earned them this remarkable success, and we are thrilled to celebrate their achievement here at the State House. Please join me in welcoming the Green Knights.
Will the guest member from South Burlington please rise and be recognized? Member from Hartford.
Madam Speaker, it is my great honor to welcome a constituent of White River Junction to the People's House, one who has gained national and international recognition as of late. You may be thinking, a resident of the Upper Valley whose name is becoming known all around the world. It must be Noah Kahn. But you would be mistaken. In all seriousness, the fact that Mohsen Madawi is here with us today is nothing short of miraculous. In the face of rising authoritarianism, Mohsen's presence in this chamber, where we hold the Constitution in the highest regard, is a meaningful juxtaposition to his recent abduction and unlawful imprisonment before trial. His presence resembles a glimpse of what things could look like on the other side, so long as we emulate his unwavering commitment to calling people in and condemning violence in all forms. Though devastating circumstances, both here and abroad, have brought us to this moment, I'm glad we have the opportunity to recognize Mohsen for his exemplary courage, defense of democracy, and as a proprietor of peace. Will the body please help me welcome Mohsen Madawi to the People's House?
Will the guest member from Hartford please rise and be recognized? Are there any further announcements? Member from Northfield.
Madam Speaker, the person I would like to introduce is not present here today, but we are here at a moment of history, of significance. The first ever American-born Catholic cardinal has just been named Pope of the Catholic Church. His name is John Robert Francis Prevost, born in Chicago. He is taking the name Pope Leo XIV.
Congratulations. Are there any further announcements? Member from Fairfield. Frank, my apologies, Member Fairfax.
I was just going to assume it was me anyway. I just want to take a moment, and it goes without saying that we have so many civil servants here in this chamber, but I think it is very telling that this week is both Nurse Appreciation Week and Teacher Appreciation Week. So all of you who wear so many hats, I've sent a few notes to you, but thank you for all you do for us here, for your communities, and for our kiddos.
Let's give a round of applause and thank them. Are there any further announcements? Seeing none? Or member from Morristown.
Thank you. It's not often I get to welcome people into the State House, but many people don't realize I have children. I don't speak about them often or bring them up. But today we have many guests here representing Let's Grow Kids, one of whom happens to be a woman whom I've known for over 30 years and who has stepped in to my children's lives as their surrogate grandparent and helps me with doctor's appointments and transportation and all the other things that need to happen while I'm here doing this work. And so Wendy Andrus has been a nurse for, speaking of Nurses Week, for over 40 years, 35 of which were at Copley Hospital, and I would really like it if you all could help me welcome her to the chamber.
Will the guest, the member from Morristown, please rise and be recognized? Member from Hartford.
Madam Speaker, I would like the body to recognize a good friend and long-term advocate for human and civil rights, Wafiq Farrar, who is also offering support to Mosul. They're sitting in the gallery, and I'd like to have the body give them their best.
Will the guest, the member from Hartford, please rise and be recognized? Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, orders of the day. Members, we will begin with House Bill 248, which is an act relating to supplemental child care grants and the Child Care Financial Assistance Program. The bill was referred to the Committee on Human Services, which recommends that the bill be amended as printed in today's calendar. The member from Hartford, Representative Cole, will speak for the committee. And then carrying an appropriation, the bill was then referred to the Committee on Appropriations, which recommends that the report of the Committee on Human Services be amended as printed in today's calendar. The member from Putney, Representative Morwicki, will speak for that committee. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
H.248, an act relating to supplemental child care grants and the Child Care Financial Assistance Program.
Member from Hartford.
Madam Speaker, H. 248 fortifies the legislature's impressive work on childcare in previous bienniums by offering 3 technical changes. in response to both stakeholder input and in order to comply with 2024 rule changes from the federal government. This bill is relatively brief because few changes are immediately necessary. This is a testament to the hard work and thoroughness of relevant House committees over the years, as well as other legislative champions for expanded access to childcare. Thanks to this body's impressive work on Act 76, Vermont has far less catching up to do to meet new federal requirements than most other states, given our investment and acknowledgement that high quality and affordable childcare is foundational to a strong overall economy, not only by supporting families in the workforce, but also through its impact on our children's early learning outcomes. We know that policymaking can be a slow process with delayed gratification, so it has been exciting to witness such positive results from Act 76 in the very short term. For example, a 40% increase in families qualifying for and receiving financial assistance, inching us closer to the goal of no Vermonter paying more than 10% of their income on childcare. Now to the specifics of the bill. You can find the amended language on page 2166 of today's calendar. Section 1 of the bill makes technical changes to the state's extraordinary financial relief provisions within the Child Care Financial Assistance Program. Your committee heard examples from the Deputy Commissioner of the Child Development Division of DCF regarding emergencies where child care programs were at risk of closure or suddenly closing. In the previous statute, it was not clear to the state if they could use extraordinary financial relief to help programs that had not yet opened, or to support families needing to find alternative care in other programs. This was a particularly relevant concern for child care centers affected by flooding. The changes in Section 1 clarify that the funds can be used for programs that are in the process of opening, not just those that are already open, support programs that are at risk of closing, or, importantly, support programs that are suddenly expanding or otherwise scrambling to bring in children who are left without care when another program closes. Sections 2 and 3 contain changes in response to new federal requirements. In April of 2024, under the Biden administration, the Office of Child Care within the Federal Administration for Children and Families established new rules for the Child Care Development Fund, CCDF, which is the federal block grant that goes to all states and territories to help states pay for child care financial assistance for families. In Vermont, it helps to fund our state Child Care Financial Assistance Program, CCFAP. In federal fiscal year 2024, the total of those federal CCDF dollars coming to Vermont was over $17 million. This money has been integral to supporting families' access to childcare. Penalties for non-compliance with new federal rules could include a suspension or termination of CCDF funds. States were allowed to apply for a 2-year waiver from the rule requirements, which Vermont did. That means that the state has until the fall of 2026 to comply. As to not put these crucial funds at risk, H.248 makes statutory changes necessary for the state's Child Development Division to begin changing their systems and doing the necessary planning to be in compliance with the rule by the end of the waiver next year. Section 2 of the bill would enable DCF to provide CCFAP funds to programs through grants and contracts, in addition to the more traditional subsidy payment system that they use now. This is one of the new federal rules, which requires the state to provide some childcare services through grants and contracts to help increase supply and quality of childcare for children in 3 categories: underserved geographic areas, infants and toddlers, and children with disabilities. Section 3 shifts the way that payments are made to the state childcare programs. This change would have the state pay programs in advance or at the time of service, instead of the current reimbursement model after care has already been provided. Having worked for an early childhood education center, I know the current reimbursement-based system made it difficult to make payroll at times. The federal rule says that this change is intended to make state payments happen in the same way that private pay families pay for care up front. This creates more stable and predictable funding for childcare programs, which operate on very thin margins. This section also makes a small technical change that clarifies the statute related to state payments to childcare programs based on enrollment. The effective date of H.248 would be upon passage. The committee heard testimony from the bill sponsor, Legislative Counsel, the Office of Legislative Counsel, the Deputy Commissioner in the Child Development Division in the Department for Children and Families, the Chief Policy Officer from Let's Go Kids, and the Vermont Director of First Children's Finance. The bill passed out of committee on a vote of 11-0-0. Your House Committee on Human Services respectfully requests the body's support.
And now speaking for the Committee on Appropriations, member from Putney.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Our amendment is on page 2168 in today's calendar. It's a very short amendment. It's only 3 words, but it was arrived at after much discussion because we wanted to be as clear as we could to wordsmith the language so it represented the real needs that are out there and why this is necessary. There was some consideration that there are already startup grants for a center, but so why would we include startups for this? And the reality is, before the cash starts flowing for business, it needs some cash flow to get going. And that's one of the reasons we added the stipulation that we did here. It's clear that when there's various troubles that can happen, whether it's a natural disaster or other considerations, that's a place and time that child care centers might need a grant of this sort. But we added the language after at risk of closing by inserting the phrase or not opening to make sure that we were as clear as we could that there are various considerations for why these grants were necessary, and that was one of them. Your committee voted 11-0-0 for this, and we ask your support for it.
Member from Hartford.
Your House Committee on Human Services thanks the Committee on Appropriations for their amendment. We appreciate the new language. We appreciate that the new language helps to communicate our intent more clearly. House Human Services took a straw poll vote on the amendment for a count of 10-0-1 and respectfully request the body support.
The question is, shall the report of the Committee on Human Services be amended as recommended by the Committee on Appropriations? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have amended the report of the Committee on Human Services. Now, the member from Norwich, Representative Holcomb, offers an amendment to the report of the Committee on Human Services as amended that is printed in today's calendar. Member from Norwich.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And the amendment is on page 2169 of today's calendar. The motivation for this amendment is something many of you have been hearing about. Last year, when I went door to door, what people said is they wanted us to work on the cost of living. They said their property taxes were too high. They said they were working 2 jobs and were worried about being able to pay their bills. And many in my community also wanted to know that we are protecting a public purpose for school budgets. This amendment, which begins on page 2169, in section 1, changes the pre-K bill, the program that I help with initial implementation, only by changing how it is funded. In section 1, it specifies that if pre-kindergarten under our current regulatory structure is provided in a public school, then public school districts are responsible for paying for it. It also says that if the parent chooses to enroll their child in a private provider, as they currently are allowed to do, that DCF will pay for it. There's conforming language in remaining sections that support that goal. And then in section 7, there is language that enables streamlining of the application process for parents who choose to place their child in a private provider for publicly funded pre-kindergarten. That is only possible because those parents can now do a unified application through DCF. So what this amendment does, first of all, is it lowers property taxes by over a cent on the average tax rate. To give you a sense of this, this is based on Agency of Education information. They sent me data on all of the tuition vouchers paid to private providers, and it sums up to about 14.3 million. We can provide the exact same pre-kindergarten and lower the total education property tax by just over a cent by having it funded, if it's in a private setting, through DCF. And right now, every dollar matters. It also reduces bureaucracy and costs for school districts and private providers. Many of you may have heard from parents who have said that they didn't realize that if they moved school districts, they had to reapply for that pre-kindergarten benefit. Many of you have heard from school districts who have to manage payment to multiple private providers, or private providers who have to manage billing multiple public school districts. This allows for greater simplicity of that process. This amendment also prevents school districts from being compelled to fund settings that are not inclusive. Some providers don't have to serve children with very challenging behaviors or children who have disabilities, and many school districts choose to operate programs precisely so that the pre-kindergarten their children participate in is inclusive. This amendment also prevents compelled support of religious practice and religious programs and programs that choose who to hire based on religion as well. It also allows districts to manage the programs for which they're responsible and for which they pay. If you're trying to operate your program in-house, you pay for that program in-house. If you choose to opt out of your public program, you receive the funding for the exact same pre-kindergarten, but you receive it through CDF. It doesn't reduce choices. And again, this amendment directs CDD to reduce bureaucracy for parents who enroll their children in PK and who apply for CDD subsidies. They can go to one agency for that now. This bill did not make crossover, so it's headed to the Senate. The reason to make this change now is so that the Senate can dispose of this bill in time to have an impact on the fiscal year 27 budgets. And some of you know that I and a few others voted against the yield bill because when we used $120 million in one-time money to buy down tax rates this year, what we're doing is setting up school districts for a very large fiscal cliff next year. This change is a first step towards real savings in the education fund that provide continuing and durable reductions in property taxes for families. If the Senate needs to adjust the numbers based on their summer study, that is something that they will be able to do next year. How can we do this? How can we do this without jeopardizing the program and reducing the access of families to pre-kindergarten? I said already that we know that school districts spend about $15 million worth on pre-K and private providers. I checked at lunch today on how much was in or raised this year in excess of what was used in the Act 76 created Child Care Contribution Special Fund. For those of you who weren't here last biennium, we set up a payroll tax to fund something called the Child Care Contribution Special Fund. The purpose of that fund was to pay for early care and learning. As of today, in the version of the budget, and we can ask the representative from Middlebury to update us when she returns, but as of today, there was about $20 million that was in the special fund for childcare and early care and learning. That $20 million has been transferred to the general fund for other purposes. So what this change allows us to do is to use those payroll taxes for the stated purpose, which is early care and learning. And currently, those resources are greater than the demands being placed on school districts. That's the only way we can do this. Note that this amendment does not change the current regulatory framework for pre-K, and I'm very grateful to the committees for hearing this testimony. Many of the concerns I heard were concerns with the current framework of pre-kindergarten. They are not changed by this amendment. This amendment does not change how and where parents can enroll their child in pre-kindergarten. They still have all the options and choices they had before. It's just that it's only paid for by school districts if it's provided in a public school. If it's provided in a private provider, it's funded by DCF. This does not reduce access to pre-kindergarten and private providers. It does not change hours of eligibility or how pre-K is provided. It does not change current differences across regions or across types of providers in terms of how pre-K is provided. And it does not prevent any of our committees from making changes to pre-K in the future if they would like to do so. Again, getting this language through the House now means we can get it done in time in the Senate to make a difference for the fiscal year 27 school budgets. This is a chance for us all to also say, We hear our constituents when they say they are worried about the cost of living in Vermont, and we are doing our best to find ways to bring down that cost so that young families can thrive and get the care that they need. If you vote no, you are voting for higher property taxes. If you vote no, you are voting for more administrative bureaucracy. If you vote no, you are voting for taxpayer-funded.
Member from Fairfax.
I believe the member is implying motives. Thank you.
Can I see the members at the podium, please? The House will stand at ease. Will the House please come to order and members kindly take their seats? Member from Fairfax, I find your point of order not well taken, but will caution the member that the member was very close to the line and ensure that you are keeping it to the policy and not anywhere near motive. Thank you, member. Member from Norwich, the floor is yours.
I want to thank the representative from Fairfax and make very clear I apologize sincerely if you thought I was implying intent. I'm only talking about practical implications of policy and what might happen if we don't pass this bill. If we do not pass this amendment, we will be compelling school districts to pay for programs that discriminate. If we do not pass this, we are compelling school districts to support religious practice. If we do not pass this amendment, we are making school districts, particularly in rural communities that have seen huge loss of population and are trying to operate pre-kindergarten and achieve scale and community-based programming, they will have to do that, but they will also have to pay for additional pre-K vouchers in other places in ways that may harm their ability to develop those programs and make good use of their facilities. On the other hand, if people choose to pass this amendment, one practical implication of passing this amendment would be lower property taxes. And we don't yet have anything we can point to as a body that is tangibly going to reduce property taxes in the next budget cycle. If we pass this amendment, we have an opportunity to reduce bureaucracy for parents who are eligible for both child care subsidies and who choose to enroll their child in a private provider for pre-kindergarten. They will have the same opportunities, but we can streamline the paperwork so that they can do it with less burden. We also would streamline with this amendment if we choose to pass it. We would make it easier for school districts in that they wouldn't have to manage the business side of payment of pre-kindergarten vouchers to multiple private providers. It would allow them to focus on improving their own programs. Using this amendment, we could also ensure, as a practical matter, that we are using the Child Care Contribution Fund, which as of now had $20 million balance. We are using that balance for its intended purpose, which is to fund early care and learning. So why this bill and why now? I think I've said it. I'm worried about affordability. I'm hearing every day from people who are worried about affordability. We didn't help them when we brought down tax rates with $120 million in surplus. Even before the Medicaid cuts, unless our amazing House Healthcare Committee is able to find $200 million in healthcare cuts under a couch cushion somewhere, we're likely looking at another year of double-digit increases in healthcare rates and bigger impacts on school budgets than in the fiscal year 26 budgets. I'm worried because if we lose federal funding and we're dealing with those high costs, we need to be using every dollar as carefully as possible to make sure that we're taking care of the kids that we need. We also are poised to pass S-127, which uses education fund and property tax revenues to fund infrastructure. This is desperately needed infrastructure, but don't kid ourselves. This is going to create a future burden, or at least withdraw funding from the ed fund that could have been used to bring down those taxes in future years. So I'm asking you to please consider supporting this amendment to support ending compelled support of religion by public school districts, to end the compelled support by school districts of programs when they're trying to operate their own programs, to ensure that parents who choose to enroll in private providers are still able to enroll in private providers of their choice and receive the subsidies to which they are entitled as they practice those decisions, and also to, again, lower those property taxes. Thank you very much.
Speaking for the Committee on Education, member from Cornwall.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We appreciate the member bringing us this amendment, and more so the member's continued focus on taking pressure off the education fund. Our committee believes this concept is worthy of consideration, but after some initial important Joint Fiscal Office study is done first. Our committee listened to testimony from the Department of Children and Families and, most importantly, our JFO in considering the amendment. JFO is committed to studying what they describe as the Gordian knot of pre-K and child care funding this off-session, and recommended that this work happen first so we fully understand the implications of making major changes in pre-K funding. Your House Education Committee agreed with that and the need to wait for the study, and we voted 7-3-1 to find the amendment unfavorable. Thank you.
Member from Hartford.
Madam Speaker, the House Committee on Human Services thanks the member for bringing this amendment to our committee. Our state investment in childcare has grown, and we concurrently face extreme pressures on the education fund. As such, we must be exceptionally conscientious about where different costs are borne, and in particular, from which funding pool. Though our CCFAP pool of funding is healthy now, we need to be conscientious of the increased volume of eligible families that we will need to account for next year and in years to come. We look forward to reviewing the continued analyses that the Joint Fiscal Office will provide on this subject and the capacity of different childcare funding pools. Instead of an amendment format, pre-K funding and access should be deeply integrated into the education funding reform conversation, particularly if we envision a future where every Vermont child has guaranteed access to pre-K, just as they do a K-12 education. For this amendment, our committee took testimony from the sponsor of the amendment, Legislative Counsel, the Office of Legislative Counsel, the Joint Fiscal Office, and the Deputy Commissioner of the Child Development Division in the Department for Children and Families, and voted unfavorably on account of 0-10-1. Madam Speaker, may I yield the floor to the member from Waterbury?
The member from Hartford yields the member from Waterbury.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just going to ask the reporter of the bill to double check that vote count. I think it was 11, but I wanted to speak to this because I want to make sure that members of the body understand that this is not the end of a conversation if this amendment is voted down. As the member from Cornwall said, we believe that we should be continuing to have a conversation about pre-K. And one of the things that this amendment does not do is it does not do anything to increase access to pre-K in the underserved areas of our state. And that one should be one of the key elements of any action that we take on pre-K. We have been in discussions with JFO around this issue, and regardless of whatever language ends up in or out of the education bill that's currently being considered, JFO is going to, as they say, try to untangle this knot of pre-K. This also bifurcates our pre-K delivery system, funding system, in a way that is not fair, frankly, to private providers. And one of the things that I really feel I need to state is that the private providers are probably more heavily regulated than the public education system at this point in time. There are very strict non-discrimination languages in the rules that govern our private pre-K providers. The other thing that is problematic with this amendment at this time is it's not being taken in the context of the broader education discussion that is happening across the way in the Senate right now, and which will return to us shortly, we hope. As we have heard, the CCFAP expansion has already grown 40% and is continuing to grow. Utilizing funds from this that would be on a permanent basis is not advisable at this time, while we are still trying to understand the massive changes that we made in Act 76 and what the fiscal implications of that are. The presenter of the amendment didn't say that this has the potential for needing to increase because the Child Care Financial Assistance Program is an entitlement program. If you are eligible, then you're entitled to receive that service. And if we utilize the funds that remain in the balance right now and that are currently being generated for another purpose, then we frankly put ourselves at risk of needing to increase the child care contribution, which is a payroll tax. So this is not increasing the obligation on the ed fund. It is making a decision to keep it at status quo while we do our due diligence and understand the implications, the full implications for any potential change for this in the future. So I want to reiterate that we voted, I believe it was 0-11-0, unfavorable on this, and the Department for Children and Families, who operates a child care program and early learning, was against this, as well as Let's Grow Kids, an advocacy organization in the community. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to name names, but everyone here supports the objectives of having a quality early education and learning system that's going to benefit all children. Changing a financial system of how that's paid for at this point in time is just ill-advised, absent all the other discussions that are happening in this building. And we look forward to continued discussions with the presenter of the amendment and the full body next year when we have more information about how we might be able to address this in the future. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question is, shall the report of the Committee on Human Services as amended be further amended as offered by the member from Norwich? Member from Norwich.
Thank you very much. Again, I want to observe that there was 20 million balance in the child care fund that was transferred to the general fund to non-early child care purposes this year. I would like to know if any of the committees took testimony from anyone in the VSBA or public education community.
The question is, shall the report of the Committee on Human Services be amended, be further amended as offered by the member from Norwich? Are you ready for the question? If so, member from Dover.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I don't know if there was an error or if the member sitting down prevented the answer to that question, but I would like to know if there was any testimony from the reporter of the bill, from the VSBA, or other school.
Are you asking to interrogate the member?
Yes, I am.
The member from Hartford is interrogated.
So no, we did not. For testimony, we had 4 different witnesses: the sponsor, Legislative Counsel, Joint Fiscal Office, and the Deputy Commissioner of the Child Development Division for this amendment specifically.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, did the Education or the Appropriations Committee take any testimony from any of the education community? I'd like to interrogate the member, the reporter from Appropriations.
The member from Putney is interrogated. Member from Dover.
Sorry, Madam Speaker. I'm sorry that this is so disjointed, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, did the Appropriations Committee take any testimony from any of the education associations on this bill?
No.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, may I interrogate the Chair of House Education?
The member from Cornwall is interrogated.
Madam Speaker, did House Education take any testimony from the education community related to this bill?
We did not.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I appreciate this is a big year and lots of moving parts for many of our social systems, including our education system, ongoing work on our pre-K system. I am surprised to learn about the excess revenue that we are generating. I guess I should not be. I'm alarmed to learn that, and I want to say that I really appreciate the member from Norwich's continued focus on this issue. As we are looking at our public education system and making sure that it exists, this discussion around pre-K is one that predates, and there has been significant conflict around for years between private providers and the public system. I appreciate that this amendment has been brought forward today. I appreciate the focus on Carson, the Carson decision, which took place 3 years ago, and which we have not yet addressed, and I will be supporting this amendment.
The question is, shall the report of the Committee on Human Services as amended be further amended as offered by the member from Norwich? Member from Putney.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. When we heard from our state economists during their last report, there was some discussion about the newly formed child care fund, the one that's just started taking in money. I don't think considering anything in their excess funding would be accurate. The fund is just getting going. We don't know what the ceiling or the bottom will be on this, and what we heard from the economists is that it's going to be 18 months before we can really have a better sense of what to expect from that and what we can then start to regularly draw down from that. It's going to be a while. I think there's some back and forth about how the funds are being used. I think one of the things that we try and emphasize is that any parent who currently gets subsidy through this, or any parent that wants to get subsidy from this fund, will be able to. And as this all sugars off, and within that time period of 18 months, we'll have a better sense of this fund. So I'm just trying to address the consideration that there was somehow excess money lying around. And I think in 18 months, we'll have a better sense of what that is, or according to our state economists.
Member from Essex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As someone that is really familiar with the implementation of Act 76, I work for the Child Development Division when I'm not here. I wanted to kind of remind members a couple of things from that perspective. As it's already been mentioned, the Child Development Division has really strict rules and regulations for licensing. And unlike the Agency of Education, they actually conduct annual compliance visits to every child care program to ensure that they're in compliance with those rules that prevent discrimination. So discrimination is not happening in private child care programs. Also, the private mixed delivery system is a national best practice, and I'm really proud that we do it really well in Vermont, and it really helps rural communities, and this amendment would jeopardize that. This point has already been made, but I wanted to remind members that the income eligibility guidelines, the latest income eligibility guidelines, just went into effect in October of 2024. We have not even had a full 12 months since the higher income families have been eligible for the Child Care Financial Assistance Program. So this amendment is premature at best at this time, and I urge the body to vote no.
The question is, shall the report of the Committee on Human Services as amended be further amended as offered by the member from Norwich? Member from Williston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of the amendment and would just like to remind us all, I think we just heard in announcements, it's Teacher Appreciation Week, and I'm saddened to hear us sort of trying to pit different providers of those who love our small children the most, whether it's in a private or a public setting. I think these are incredibly important caregivers and sort of the bedrock of our communities. Teachers in the public system are licensed through the public education system and our Agency of Education. So I hope that in our discussions and debates, we don't lose sight of an excellent system on all regards and trying to serve all kids, and that this is not about pitting one group against another, and that we all do better when we all do better. Thank you.
Member from Brattleboro.
Madam Speaker, I hope that in the future all of our state agencies are fully funded to fully carry out the work that we ask of them in statute. And in the meantime, I want to offer some clarifications. The Child Care Special Fund certainly does not have excess in it. It is at this point in its first year of implementation coming in below projections. We are not concerned yet, given it's the first year of implementation, but we really won't know until likely late July and early August whether it's going to meet projections in its first year. I would also like to reiterate the points, particularly from the member from Cornwall, that our Joint Fiscal Office and I would say the members of the House Ways and Means Committee, the members of the House Education Committee, in our education reform work this year are very focused on continuing to become clear on how we fund pre-kindergarten education and early childhood education and how we fund those things. But at this point, if we divide up the funding sources, we really have absolutely no idea what the impact will be on our kids and our families and on folks receiving services and care in our state. And so I encourage members to please vote no on this amendment.
Member from Dover.
Madam Speaker, as a representative from rural Vermont and having served on rural Vermont school boards for decades, I would like to share my experience regarding how this implementation has been impacting the development of public pre-K in rural Vermont. And I'd like to assure the body that it is not helping in any way. And that has a negative impact on our property taxes. Again, I will be supporting this amendment, and I ask when the vote is taken, it be taken by roll.
The member from Dover requests that when the vote is taken, it be taken by roll. Is the member sustained? The member is sustained. When the vote is taken, it will be taken by roll. The question is, shall the report on the Committee of Human Service as amended be further amended as offered by the member from Norwich? Are you ready for the question? Member from Waterbury.
Madam Speaker, I just want to reassure members who are considering voting in favor of this amendment that this work is not complete, and that we have continued commitment. We are in continued discussions with JFO. Honestly, we had a pre-K implementation committee as part of Act 76, and I'll just be blunt, they did not complete their work as requested. And so we are needing to follow up on that work and are doing that in-house within our own joint fiscal committee. Our own joint fiscal office. And the work that's being done to understand the implications of what this amendment and any future funding, both within the Child Care Special Fund or the General Fund or the federal changes that we still have yet to know that will come in the federal budget. There are many uncertainties at this point in time. Adding this level of very dramatic change to a program that is just getting its feet underneath it without fully understanding the implications is not supported by anyone in the House Human Services Committee. And we have taken extensive testimony about Act 76. We have followed up not only in the creation of that bill and that act, but continued in our oversight and accountability sessions around that. And while members have asked about, did we take any testimony from education professionals? No, we did not. This is an amendment that impacts the Child Care Special Fund. And so I want to reiterate that this is not a discussion that is over even if this amendment fails. This is a continuing discussion, and you can look forward to hearing back from us next year on this. So again, I ask the body to support the committee's opposition to this amendment. Thank you.
Member from Waitsfield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm just looking for some clarification on some of the financial discussion, and I apologize if this has been clear, but I missed it. So I think this is a question for the member speaking for the Appropriations Committee.
The member from Putney is interrogated.
So I just want to make sure, so there was $20 million that was generated by businesses contributing to Act 76, contributing to childcare, that was not used and was then transferred to the general fund. Am I understanding that correctly, Madam Speaker?
No. And Madam Speaker, I would ask for a brief recess and get somebody from JFO here who could help us with this.
The House will stand in recess until the fall of the gavel, approximately 5 minutes. Will the House please come to order and members kindly take their seats? Will the House please come to order? Member from Putney.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I defer to the Chair of House Appropriations?
The member from Putney yields to the member from Middlebury.
Madam Speaker, could you please repeat the question for me?
Madam Speaker, I was looking for some clarification on the financial discussion of this amendment, which suggested that there was $20 million left over generated from businesses and employees going into a particular fund for childcare that was unused and that was then transferred to the general fund. And so I'm just looking for some confirmation that I'm understanding that correctly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That is actually not correct. I know there's been a lot of information going around. So there is a child care special fund that is funded by payroll taxes specifically for that purpose. That money can only be used for, is in a child care special fund, it's going to be used for child care. The program is, the program started, the payroll tax started July 1st of 2025. It's going to take 18 to 24 months before things sort of sugar off and we know what it's going to look like. So it's way too early to know whether there's going to be excess money or not. We have asked our economists in their consensus revenue forecast to project what they think the revenue will be for that specific fund, as well as other things that they do. And they gave us a projection which we accepted in January, the emergency board accepted in January. And it turns out that money is coming in below projections so far. So we are not meeting the projections that have been required. Oh, I'm sorry, the payroll tax started July of 24. It couldn't be July of 25 because it hasn't been July of 25 yet. Thank you for that correction. So there is not excess money around. I'm not sure, am I answering the question? Is this making any sense?
I think that did answer my question. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
So the question is, shall the report of the Committee on Human Services as amended be further amended as offered by the member from Norwich, member from Rutland City?
Madam Speaker, H.248 is a straightforward bill that makes technical amendments to the Child Care Financial Assistance Program to reflect federal rule changes from April of 2024. The amendment for consideration that would shift partial responsibility for paying for pre-K from the Child Care Financial Assistance Program funds. This would impact private pre-K providers and in ways that have not been fully vetted. This is a large pre-K conversion that needs to take place, and carving out one part of this puzzle is worrisome. Private pre-K is vitally important to a mixed delivery system that working parents rely upon. It is a private pre-K providers who are providing the full day, year-round care needed. Without greater consideration of the impact on the delicate balance between our public and private pre-K, this proposal simply comes too soon and without enough understanding for potential unintended consequences. Additionally, with the number of Vermonters signing up for the CFAB expansion still growing, I do not see the wisdom of adding additional expenses to this fund. This is a step that could require an increase in payroll tax, a tax that is less than a year old, and I, for one, do not want to see that increase, nor do Vermonters. To consider such a significant change outside of the bounds of the education bill seems misguided. I will be voting no for this amendment, and I ask this body's support. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? Member from Essex Junction.
Madam Speaker, I want to remind the body, your Human Services Committee voted 11-0 against, and your House Education Committee voted 7-3-1 against this amendment. The Joint Fiscal Office will be analyzing this exact question that is on the table. We need them to do that work and not make a substantial change to our pre-K system, a system caring for and educating our 3, 4, and 5-year-olds through an amendment. A no vote supports the committee's work and votes down this amendment. I encourage the body to vote no.
Are you ready for the question? If so, will the clerk please call the roll?
Arsenault of Williston. Austin of Colchester.
2 minutes. Will the House please come to order? Will the House please come to order and members kindly take their seats? I would like to remind members that we are in the middle of a roll call vote. Members and guests are prohibited from using computers, phones, or any type of an electronic device. Please refrain from the passing of notes and conversation during a roll call. And when the clerk calls your name, please answer in a loud and clear voice so the clerk can accurately record your votes. The question is, shall the report of the Committee on Human Services as amended be further amended as offered by the member from Norwich? Will the clerk please continue to call the roll?
Bailey of Hyde Park. Bartholomew of Heartland. Bartley of Fairfax. Rebecca of Winooski. Byron of Regents. Bishop of Colchester. Black of Essex. Bloomley of Burlington. Boslin of Westminster. Bosch of Clarendon. Boonton of Berry City. Boyden of Cambridge. Brady of Williston. Brannigan of Georgia. Brown of Richmond. Burdett of West Rutland. Burke of Brattleboro. Burkhart of South Burlington. Burrows of West Windsor. Byrd of Cabot. Campbell of St. Johnsbury. Canfield of Fairhaven. Karis Duncan of Whitingham. Casey of Montpelier. Casey of Hubbardton. Chapin of East Montpelier. Charlton of Chester. Christie of Hartford. Chena of Burlington. Coffin of Cavendish. Cole of Hartford. Conlon of Cornwall. Cooper of Pownell. Corkin of Bennington. Cordes Bristol. Critchlow of Colchester. Tamar of Venusburg. Dickinson of St. Albans Town. Dobrovich of Williamstown. Dodge of Essex. Dodge of Essex. Thank you. Dolan of Essex Junction. Dolgan of St. Johnsbury. Donahue of Northfield. Duke of Burlington. Durfee of Shaftesbury. Eastus of Guilford. Emmons of Springfield. Feltus of Linden. Galfetti of Barrytown. Garifano of Essex. Goldman of Rockingham. Goodnow of Brattleboro. Ghostland of Northfield. Granting of Jericho. Greer of Bennington. Gregoire of Fairfield. Hengo of Berkshire. Harple of Glover. Harrison of Chittenden. Harvey of Castleton. Hedrick of Burlington. Higley of Lowell. Holcomb of Norwich. Hooper of Randolph. Hooper of Burlington. Houghton of Essex Junction. Howard of Rutland City. Holland of Rutland Town. Hunter of Manchester. James of Manchester. Kosenska of Burke. Keyser of Rutland City. Kimball of Woodstock. Klepner of Burlington. Kornheiser of Brattleboro. Krasnow, South Burlington. Labor of Morgan. Lally of Shelburne. Lalone of South Burlington. Lamont of Morristown. LaRush of Franklin. Lipsky of Stowe. Logan of Burlington. Long of Newfane. Luno of St. Albans City. McGuire of Rutland City. Millay of Pittsford. Marcotte of Coventry. Maslin of Thetford. McCann of Montpelier. McCoy of Pulteney. McFawn of Barrytown. McGill Edward Port. Mickless of Milton. Mahaly of Calais. Minier of South Burlington. Morganella Milton. Morgan Emma Milton. Morse of Springfield. Morsey Bennington. Morrow Weston. Rowick A. Putney.
Nelson and Derby. Nielsen and Brandon. Nigro, Bennington. North of Ferrisburg. Noyes of Wolcott. Nugent of South Burlington. O'Brien of Tunbridge. Odie of Burlington. Oliver of Sheldon. Olson of Starksboro. Page of Newport City. Parsons of Newberry. Pezzo of Colchester. Pincinel of Dorset. Poucher Heinsberg. Powers of Waterford. Priestley of Bradford. Pritchard of Pollitt. Quimby of Linden. Rachelson of Burlington. Sekowitz of Randolph. Shia of Middlebury. Sheldon of Middlebury. Sibilia of Dover. Southworth of Walden. Squirrel of Underhill. Steady of Milton. Stevens of Waterbury. Stone of Burlington. Supernut of Barnard. Sweeney of Shelburne. Taglavia, Corinth. Taylor of Milton. Tomlinson of Winooski. Tufus St. Town. Torrey Town. Walker Swanton. Wazoo Zachaberry City. Waters Evans of Charlotte. Wells of Brownington. White of Waitsfield. White of Bethel. Winter of Ludlow. Wood of Waterbury. Jacoboni of Morristown. Arsenault, Williston. Brady, Williston. Burdett, West Rutland. Campbell of St. Johnsbury. Pierce Duncan of Whitingham. Dobrovich of Williamstown. Hooper of Randolph. Millay of Pittsford.
For purpose of explanation, member from Starksboro.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support the premise of this amendment. The Education Fund is asked to support too much, which impacts our property taxes. But I voted no because I believe the legislature needs to take a holistic approach to this problem rather than singling out specific programs one by one. I also believe we need more time to understand the financial needs of the child care subsidy program as it rolls out over the next few years. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member from Colchester.
May I explain my vote?
You may.
Yep. I am glad to learn that ongoing discussions will continue to improve the delivery of pre-K education system across our state. However, I want to be assured that if public funds are being used, that all Vermont students will have access to all educational opportunities, whether they are 3 or 18.
Members, please listen to the results of your vote. Those voting yes, 20. Those voting no, 104. The nays have it, and you have declined to further. Oh, members, will hold on. All right, we're going to do this over. Members, please listen to the results of your vote. Those voting yes, 20. Those voting no, 124. The nays have it, and you have declined to further amend the report of the Committee on Human Services. Now the question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Human Services as amended? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have amended the bill. Now the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and third reading is ordered. Up next is Senate Bill 44, which is an act relating to authorization to enter into certain immigration agreements. Please listen to the third reading of the bill.
S44, an act relating to authorization to enter into certain immigration agreements.
The question is, shall the bill pass in concurrence? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed the bill in concurrence. Up next is Senate Bill 87, which is an act relating to extradition procedures. Please listen to the third reading of the bill.
S87, an act relating to extradition procedures.
The question is, shall the bill pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed the bill in concurrence with proposal of amendment. Next, we'll turn to House Bill 230, which is an act relating to the management of fish and wildlife. The bill was referred to the Committee on Environment, which recommends that the bill be amended as printed in today's calendar. The member from Randolph, Representative Sakowicz, will speak for the committee. And then affecting the revenue of the state, the bill was then referred to the Committee on Ways and Means, which recommends that the bill ought to pass when amended, as recommended by the Committee on Environment. The member from Thetford, Representative Maslin, will speak for that committee. And then carrying an appropriation, the bill was then referred to the Committee on Appropriations, which also recommends that the bill ought to pass when amended, as recommended by the Committee on Environment. The member from Underhill, Representative Scroll, will speak for the committee. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
H230, an act relating to the management of fish and wildlife.
Member from Randolph.
Madam Speaker, H230, an act relating to the management of fish and wildlife, was introduced at the request of the hard-working professionals in our Fish and Wildlife Department, may be found on page 2180 of today's calendar. It would make several changes to our statutes. Section 1 would allow the Commissioner of Fish and Wildlife to designate Labor Day weekend each year as Free Mentored Fishing Weekend, during which an unlicensed angler can fish with a licensed angler over that weekend. Section 2 would amend the permitting requirements for fishing tournaments in the state. It would clarify that tournaments held on the Connecticut River that do not utilize a Vermont access area are not required to obtain a permit. It would provide that a contest may run multiple days, but the days must be consecutive for that contest to be considered a single event. And it would amend the fees for fishing tournaments by reducing the charges for smaller ones and raising them for bigger ones. Section 3 changes the definition of a big game violation and increases the fines and penalties for these violations. Sections 4 and 5 amend statutes concerning the court jurisdictions for fish and wildlife violations. Currently, fish and wildlife violations are criminal violations, except for a few specific violations, which are civil violations. However, most people don't know that these fish and wildlife violations are criminal, simply accept the penalty, and then have a criminal violation on their records. At the same time, the criminal courts are crowded, and fish and wildlife violations are, at times, not prosecuted because of lack of capacity. So Section 4 will provide that the Criminal Division of Superior Court has exclusive jurisdiction over fish and wildlife violations, except for violations related to 10 VSA 4572, which is a list of minor violations, and chapters 123, which concerns the protection of endangered species, and 124, which concerns trade in covered animal parts and products. And then section 5 would provide that except for big game offenses and those under revocation violations, any fish and wildlife violation would be charged as a minor violation, provided that one of the following was met. One, the offender has no prior history of fish and wildlife violations. There is no need to seize evidence to further investigate the violation. No need for a criminal warrant to further investigate the violation, or there's no possibility of forfeiture. The overall effect of this provision would be to change many violations that are now criminal violations to civil violations. Section 6 concerns the taking of reptiles and amphibians. Currently, there are no limits on the taking of reptiles or amphibians unless they're a threatened or endangered species. The committee heard much testimony that these creatures are not doing well and need further protection as a group. This change would prohibit the intentional taking of reptiles or amphibians in the state beginning on January 1, 2027, unless the Commissioner of Fish and Wildlife allows for such taking under department rules. Section 7 concerns the import, possession, and sale of pond slider turtles. They are an invasive species and a somewhat common pet. Section 7 would prohibit a person from importing, possessing, or selling a pond slider in the state unless it was legally acquired as a pet before July 1, 2025. Section 7 also establishes that when the commissioner authorizes the taking of a reptile or amphibian under a hunting license, the license shall include an endorsement indicating the authorized taking of the reptile or amphibian. We added this provision because we heard in testimony that some people hunt certain frogs and turtles for food. We don't have data on how common this practice is. This endorsement would help the department acquire this data and would be helpful should the commissioner consider writing rules that allow the taking of these creatures. Section 8 would amend 10 VSA 4709, but it has just come to my attention today that the Fish and Wildlife Department no longer desires this language, and the committee will take up an amendment to strike this section before third reading. Section 9 amends the list of prohibited acts under the state's Threatened and Endangered, T&E, Species Act to include the following additional prohibited activities: the sale or offer for sale in intra-state commerce of a T&E species, the delivery, receipt, carry, transport, or shipping of a T&E species in intra-state commerce, or the import or export of a T&E species from Vermont. Vermont already has very good protection for threatened and endangered species. These additions give these creatures a bit more protection. Section 10 concerns the incidental taking of T&E species. Under current law, the Secretary of Natural Resources authorizes an incidental taking of a threatened or endangered species. Notice is provided to the public about the permit that was issued, including the type of species to be taken. However, when a species is identified in a taking permit, it lets people who may want to collect that species know its general location. So next, in Section 11, this bill expands A&R's authority to keep the species to be taken confidential. So this section makes conforming amendments to the notice requirements for incidental take permits listed in the Section 11, which says that it will direct the Secretary of Natural Resources to maintain a subset list of T&E species whose specific name shall not be included in regulatory planning. Section 12 repeals the compensation of a person suffering damage by deer or black bear under certain fish and wildlife regulations. Currently, a farmer who agrees not to post their land against hunting is entitled to reimbursement of up to $5,000 from the Department of Fish and Wildlife for crop and other damage caused by deer or bear. This provision of statute was enacted to incentivize farmers to refrain from posting their land to prohibit hunting and there is no budget or appropriation for compensation. The committee heard that this law is seldom used, does not align, and is not coordinated with state and federal agricultural crop insurance programs, and has not had the intended effect. Just 4 farmers received compensation under the statute during the 3-year period from 2022 to 2024. As reimbursements are not accounted for in the department's budget, payment comes at the expense of other department priorities. In addition, this program does not work like a standard crop insurance program, which includes requirements of and assistance to farmers to help them avoid losses year after year. And then Section 13 sets the effective date as July 1, 2025, except for Section 6, as mentioned earlier, which would be effective on January 1, 2027. Committee heard from Coordinator, Vermont Reptile and Amphibian Atlas, Wildlife Division Director, Department of Fish and Wildlife, General Counsel and Forest and Wildlife Program Director, Vermont Natural Resources Council, Warden Service, Department of Fish and Wildlife, Biometrician and Research Manager of the Department of Fish and Wildlife, Herpetologist, Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department, Deputy Chief Counsel, Office of Legislative Counsel, Wildlife Diversity Program Manager, Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Commissioner, Department of Fish and Wildlife, General Counsel of Fish and Wildlife, Chief Warden of the Warden Services Division of Fish and Wildlife, Chair of the Vermont Endangered Species Committee, Vice President of the Vermont Farm Bureau, and Chief Superior Judge of the Vermont Judiciary. The bill passed on a vote of 9-1-1, and your Committee on Environment respectfully requests your support.
And now speaking for the Committee on Ways and Means, member from Thetford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As we understand, provisions in the bill affect fines, which are generally the jurisdiction of, or the responsibility of the Ways and Means Committee, and we received testimony from the presenter of the bill quite extensively, as a matter of fact, Madam Speaker. But at the end of the day, the fines that are talked about turned out to be de minimis in their impact, and they are deposited not in the general fund, but they go into the Fish and Wildlife Fund. But I can say a couple other things further, Madam Speaker, that the fiscal impact can vary annually because the fines are subject to the court's discretion within statutory provisions. So, as I said, I believe I said, the impact on revenues of the state and also the Fish and Wildlife Fund are quite de minimis. And so, on a vote of 7-3-1, we voted after hearing from the presenter of the bill, a senior fiscal analyst, and a chief deputy counsel from Legislative Council. We voted 7-3-1 that the bill ought to pass and urge the members to vote favorably. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
And now speaking for the Committee on Appropriations, member from Underhill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Your House Appropriations Committee reviewed H.230 with Legislative Council and with Joint Fiscal Offices and offered no amendments to the bill. The House Committee on Appropriations favorably recommends H.230 as amended by House Environment on a vote of 9-0. We ask for the body's support, and thank you.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Environment? Are you ready for the question? Member from Derby.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I interrogate the presenter of the bill, the member from Randolph?
The member from Randolph is interrogated.
Madam Speaker, I noticed on starting on page 2188, section 4829, is an issue relating to deer and bear damage to farmers. Did the committee take any testimony from the Agency of Agriculture, or did they take any testimony from any farmers?
No, we did not.
Okay.
No, we did not.
Was it considered, was there consideration that perhaps this act should have got a drive through our House Agricultural Committee to be looked at so we could look into this issue?
I'm sorry, Madam Speaker. Would you please repeat the question?
Yeah, thank you. Madam Speaker, was there any consideration on section 4829 to bring this bill through the House Ag, Food Resiliency and Forestry Committee to have it looked at?
Not that I can recall.
All right, thank you. And on, I think you called it a endorsement on a license for frogs and turtles. Currently, our hunting licenses have endorsement for, when you buy your license, you have early season, you have your deer tag, your bear tag, and you get endorsements for an early season bear, turkey tags, bow hunting and whatnot. How much do you propose they ought to charge for a bullfrog tag?
My understanding is that this endorsement would not have an extra fee.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the presenter for answering the questions. I don't quite know how to go about from here, but I would ask that maybe because of section 4829, that the Agriculture Committee had the courtesy to have a look at this, to ask some questions as to this. I realize that for farmers receiving up to $5,000 each over the last, from 22, 23, and 24, may not seem like a lot of money, but if you lose a cow to a bear or a pig, or you have your apple crops damaged and whatnot by deer, it does mean something. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Environment? Member from Shaftesbury.
Yes, Madam Speaker, pursuant to the previous member's suggestion, could I request a brief recess?
Yes, the House will stand in recess for approximately 5 minutes. Will the House please come to order and members kindly take their seats? Will the House please come to order? The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Environment? Member from Randolph.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, I'd like to apologize. We did hear from a farmer. The vice president of the Farm Bureau is indeed a farmer. And I'd just like to reiterate that this crop program was never intended to be a crop insurance program. It was always intended to be a program to incentivize farmers to not post their land against hunting. And that really was the intention, and it did not do that very well. It has not been a successful program. It has not been. I'll leave it at that. It was not a program that has been widely used.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Environment? Member from Derby.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. After the recess that we had and hearing some clarification and whatnot, I'm fine with the bill, and I thank the House Environment Committee for having the discussion. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Environment? Are you ready for the question? Member from Franklin.
Madam Speaker, I don't know if this is the right time. It was mentioned that there would be amendment on Section 8 would be removed from the bill. I don't know whether, should I wait for that amendment before I ask the presenter of the bill about the reasoning behind that?
Member, do you choose to interrogate the member with questions about the possible amendment? We go that route. The member from Randolph is interrogated.
Madam Speaker, I'm curious as to why Fish and Wildlife would ask to remove Section 8.
This was very much happened today, and we did not hear in the House Environment Committee testimony just that they were planning on asking to not include that section of the bill. So in terms of exactly why they want that, I am not sure. But one of the big aspects that this bill does, one of the big things this bill does is provide additional protections for amphibians and reptiles. And in Section 6 of the bill, we do a very good job of that. And so I believe it's the understanding of, my understanding is that the Fish and Wildlife Department doesn't see the protections in Section 8, which would cover all wild animals, that's not necessary at this time.
Madam Speaker, I'm very concerned as Section 8 deals with the importation of wildlife. And if that's struck completely, I'm very concerned about what might happen with importation of native as well as other species from around the country. Did they talk about that at all, Madam Speaker?
My apologies, Madam Speaker. Would you please repeat the question?
Did they speak to the issue of importation of wildlife and release of wildlife into the state of Vermont?
My understanding is that that is covered in other parts of statute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd really like to be sure of that before I voted to remove any of that Section 8 from this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Environment? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have amended the bill. Now the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and third reading is ordered. Will the House please stand at ease for a moment?
Will the House please come to order? Next is House Bill 41, which is an act relating to abuse of the dead body of a person. The member from South Burlington.
Madam Speaker, I move that we postpone action on H.41, abuse of the dead body of a person, one legislative day.
The member from South Burlington moves that we postpone action on House Bill 41 for one legislative day. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have postponed action on House Bill 41 for one legislative day. The final bill on our action calendar today is House Bill 137, which is an act relating to the regulation of insurance products and services. The bill passed the Senate with a proposal of amendment that is printed in today's calendar. The member from Bethel.
Madam Speaker, the Senate's proposal of amendment comprises of 4 sections, and you can find this all in the today's calendar on page 2191. The 3 of the 4 sections, sections 22, 23, and 24, pertain to virtual currency kiosks, cryptocurrency kiosks, and the 4th section pertains to mutual financial institutions. With the crypto kiosk piece, some of you may remember that last year, this body passed a moratorium on crypto kiosks in the state that basically limited their availability, that there could be no more new crypto kiosks in the state for a period of until 2026. And at that time, there were also a number of restrictions that were put on the ones that were existing, including a certain number of disclosures, and also there was a limitation on what they could charge for fees. And then there was a report that was to come out, and the whole purpose was to see how the crypto kiosks did in the state, and to figure out were they a good idea for the state of Vermont. Over the ensuing months, the Department of Financial Regulation, along with the industry, has done some work and presented us with these 3 sections pertaining to virtual currency kiosks. So to get into it, Section 22 has added some definitions. The primary ones are blockchain analytics, which are a software service that uses data from various virtual currencies, and they're applicable blockchains to provide a risk rating specific to digital wallet addresses from users of virtual currency kiosks. You'll see that. That's important later. Then it also has definitions for what a digital wallet is and digital wallet address. Probably the more interesting, more important to the bill definitions are of an existing customer that's been added, and an existing customer in the crypto kiosk industry is defined as engaging in a transaction at a virtual currency kiosk in Vermont, and whose first transaction with that kiosk operator occurred more than 30 days prior. That's existing. A new customer is defined again as engaging in a transaction at a kiosk, but whose first transaction with that kiosk operator occurred not more than 30 days prior. This is going to be important later. So that was Section 22, just the definition. Section 23 is about required disclosures that cryptocurrency kiosk operators have to make. And a number of these were already in place. You'll see that basically there's been some labeling to separate them out. So there's a section on licensee disclosures generally. There's licensee disclosures prior to business activity, which lays that all out, which is existing law. And then there's a section that's called disclosures. And that includes disclosures prior to each virtual currency transaction. And in the addition that the Senate has added is that a licensee shall prominently disclose and shall, it used to be may, require the customer to acknowledge and confirm the terms and conditions of the virtual currency transaction, which shall include number of pieces of data, the type, value, date, precise time, amount of transaction, the consideration charged for the transaction, any fees, those kind of things. Also added by the Senate is a piece on that with that first transaction, a customer has to be given a description of the virtual currency kiosk operator's refund policy and a warning that basically says there's some risk with virtual currency. And it will also indicate what the daily transaction limit is for that person. Also, disclosures for new kiosk accounts. When opening an account for a new customer and prior to entering into an initial transaction, each kiosk operator shall disclose relevant terms about its services and products, and there's a whole list of those. But basically, it's a whole bunch of things that are designed to, about the customer's right to receive a receipt and a trade ticket, their right to prior notice of a change in the rules, a right to receive periodic account statements, those kind of things. It also includes that user must be provided with the name and telephone number of the Department of Financial Regulation and a statement disclosing that a customer may contact the department with questions or complaints about a licensee, and that such other disclosures as are customarily given in connection with opening customer accounts. Then there are a few other little things, tweaks to this existing statute. One is that the discussion of funds needs to be expressed in U.S. currency and those kind of things. Also, they are already required, they are also required by the Senate proposal to provide a transaction receipt. The operator shall provide a customer with both a paper and an electronic receipt in a retainable form for each virtual transaction, just so that, again, there's record, and that receipt will include the identification of any digital wallet address, the full name of the account owner, any unique transaction identifiers, and a statement of the operator's liability for non-delivery or delayed delivery of the virtual currency. Again, the name of DFR and a customer warning that there is some risk to using these, and also a whole section that is designed to basically stop them from being used in fraudulent manners, in particular where people are feeling coerced into giving money into a kiosk. So there's a whole set of questions, for example, that say, did you receive a phone call from your bank, software provider, the police, or were you directed to make a payment for Social Security, utility bill, an investment warranty, bail, money, etc. at this kiosk? If so, stop. Is anyone pressuring you to make a payment of any kind? Stop. And there's a whole set of those kind of questions, again, to try and prevent people from being coerced or fooled into giving money into a kiosk that goes to a fraudulent purpose. So those are the main pieces of that section. Section 24 is about the operators of the kiosks. Originally, they were limited. A virtual kiosk operator could not dispense more than $1,000 of cash in a day in a transaction, and that has been raised to $2,000 for new customers of a kiosk, and for existing customers. That's why we had the definitions. The existing customers have a limit of $5,000 of cash in a day that can be transacted through a virtual kiosk. Additionally, another change was that, as I mentioned earlier, last year we narrowed the amount of fee that could be charged by the a kiosk operator. We set it at 3%, and they came back and said that that's not actually financially feasible. And so they, in conjunction with the Department of Financial Regulation, settled on 15%. So that is also. Let me see what else exciting is in here. Customer identification. There's a whole section in here for customer identification. And this was included in part, again, to help identify who's using these kiosks. A large part of the purpose behind this, why the Department of Financial Regulation supported this legislation, was because they want to collect data. And so customer identification. Each virtual currency transaction occurring at a kiosk shall verify the identity of the customer prior to accepting payment from the customer. And the person has to use their own true name and identity. The kiosk operator shall obtain a copy of the government-issued identification card and shall collect customer information, including their name, date of birth, telephone address, all that stuff. In addition, a virtual kiosk operator shall take a photograph of the customer in a retainable format at the virtual currency kiosk for each transaction. And then there also needs to be provided customer support. Each operator shall offer live toll-free telephone customer support during the hours of operation for a kiosk, and it will be displayed on the kiosk. And there is a requirement for mandatory live screening that new customers over 60 years of age prior to a transaction needs to be screened because, again, they are a primary target of a lot of these scams. So there's a lot of other kind of user protections in there. And then also another protection that's put in is the blockchain analytics. A kiosk operator shall use blockchain analytics software and retain an established third party that specializes in performing such analytics to assist in the prevention of sending purchased virtual currency from a virtual currency kiosk operator to a digital wallet known to be affiliated with fraudulent activity at the time of the transaction. The Commissioner of Department of Financial Regulation may request evidence from any kiosk operator of its current use of blockchain analytics. Another piece that was put in here is refunds. Full refunds for new customers. A virtual kiosk operator shall provide a full refund to a customer who was fraudulently induced to engage in a transaction, provided the fraudulently induced transaction occurred while the customer was a new customer. Right? Remember, that was 30 days after within 30 days of their first use of a kiosk. And further, provided the customer contacts the virtual currency kiosk operator and a law enforcement or government agency to inform the operator and the agency of the fraudulent nature of the transaction within 90 days after the customer's last virtual currency transaction with the kiosk operator. The refund shall include any fees charged in association with the induced transaction. Fee refund for existing customers. For those existing customers that have have done a transaction prior, at least 30 days before, they the kiosk operator shall provide a fee refund to an existing customer who has been fraudulently induced to engage in a transaction, provided the customer contacts the kiosk operator, law enforcement, government agency again, and informs them of the transaction within 90 days after the last fraudulently induced transaction. The refund shall include all fees as charged in association with the fraudulently induced transaction. Fraud prevention. A virtual currency kiosk operator shall take reasonable steps to detect and prevent fraud, including establishing and maintaining a written anti-fraud policy. The policy shall, at a minimum, include the identification and assessment of fraud-related risk areas, procedures and controls to protect against identified risks, allocation of responsibility for monitoring risk, procedures for the periodic evaluation and revision of anti-fraud procedures, procedures and controls that prevent more than one customer from using the same digital wallet, and procedures that that control and enable the kiosk operator to prevent a digital wallet from being used at a kiosk if the operator knows or reasonably should know that the wallet is affiliated with fraudulent activities. And again, policies and procedures for using a risk-based method for monitoring customers on a post-transaction basis. And there are some other pieces in here about they need to have a compliance policies, and they have to have a compliance officer to make sure that they're being compliant with all of that, and that they are reporting appropriately to the commissioner. The commissioner may adopt rules that the commissioner deems necessary and proper to carry out the purpose of this section, including with respect to what constitutes a fraudulent activity or fraudulently induced transaction in the context of customer transactions at a virtual currency kiosk. All of this, as you can see, is intended to get the data of who's using these, what they're using them for, and how much of it is actually fraudulent. And if we find, as we've been assured by the industry that they've got it under control and it's minimal, then the Department of Financial Regulation will feel comfortable moving forward. If we find otherwise, then there may be other changes. One piece of note is that the moratorium was not lifted, so within 1 year, we will revisit this and have to decide if it's going to continue. So that's the virtual currency kiosk part. That was the long, hard part. The next part here is section 25, which is about corporators of mutual financial institutions, or sometimes shortened to mutual banks. And just to describe to you what a mutual bank is, and I believe we were told there are only 4 in the state, and they're basically sort of a mix between a credit union and a regular bank, in that they have their membership is, they serve a particular membership, and they have a board that's comprised of the members of the community that they serve, but they are for profit. And so the Department of Financial Regulation brought this to us because one of the 4 mutual financial institutions in the state wants to become part of a holding company, and when they were talking with the federal regulators, they told them that they needed, before that could happen, they had to tighten up some things. In particular, they had to tighten up who are the corporators, basically the trustees of the institution. So DFR recommended that for mutual financial institutions, that all corporators who are basically their trustees shall be residents of geographic area that the financial institution serves, or an area proximate to this geographic area. A person shall not continue as a corporator after ceasing to be a resident of the geographic area or an area proximate to it. The other addition is that more than 50% of all corporators shall be depositors in the financial institution, and at least 2/3 of all corporators shall be independent. And that means an individual who is not an employee, director, or officer of the financial institution, its subsidiaries, or its affiliates. And corporators shall be fiduciaries of the depositor base and shall exercise their authority in the best interests of the depositors with a duty of loyalty of care, and that they shall consider the interests of the depositors, the borrowers, and other customers of the financial institution, the general benefit of the economic well-being of communities served, and the safety, soundness, and general business needs of the financial institution. So that's the changes that they recommend for that. Your Committee on Commerce and Economic Development heard from the Legislative Council, Office of Legislative Counsel, the President of the Vermont Bankers Association, the Deputy Commissioner of Banking from the Department of Financial Regulation, the Commissioner for the Department of Financial Regulation, the Director of Policy from the Department of Financial Regulation, and the Senior Vice President and General Counsel of CoinFlip. Your committee did two straw poll votes, and for the kiosk, the vote was 10-1-0, and the banking portion, it was 11-0-0, that we concur with the proposal of amendment from the Senate. Your Committee on Commerce and Economic Development respectfully requests that the body gives us its support. Thank you.
Question is, shall the House concur in the Senate proposal of amendment? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have concurred in the proposal of amendment. Members, that completes the orders of the day. The chair has two committee appointments to announce. First, the member from Springfield, Rep. Emmons, will be serving ex officio on the Access Board. And second, the member from Springfield has designated the member from Burlington, Rep. Hedrick, to serve on the Art and State Buildings Advisory Committee. Are there any announcements? Member from Poultney, can you please offer us a motion to adjourn until Friday, May 9th, 2025 at 9:30 a.m.?
Madam Speaker, I make a motion this body stand in adjournment until Friday, May 9, 2025 at 9:30 a.m.
The member from Poultney moves that we adjourn until Friday, May 9th, 2025 at 9:30 a.m. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and this body stands in adjournment until tomorrow at 9:30 a.m.